FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio.
Right now, joining me on the phone is Missouri Senator Kurt Schaefer. He has led the fight on a number of conservative issues here, and he joins us for an announcement that he's made concerning future run. Good afternoon to you, Senator.
Good afternoon, Dana. Always a pleasure to be on your show.
We enjoy having you on. So a change in venue for you, so to speak. Give us your latest news.
Well, you know, Dana, again, I love being on the show, and one reason I do is, for example, when you brought up the issue with the Department of Revenue, for example, the last legislative session in the winter, when we uncovered, for example, that the Department of Revenue was illegally gathering data on Missouri citizens and then sharing that data with the federal government, you know, you were like the person who came down the path and turned over that rock and saw just a glimpse of what was under it before anybody even saw the rock in the path. And so that's why I wanted to come on your show and say, you know, on some of these things that we worked on, it's just become abundantly apparent to me that we have to have strong leadership in the state of Missouri to make sure that we are protecting the rights of Missourians, whether that be from violent criminals, whether that be from an over-intrusive federal government, or from unscrupulous business practices from somebody taking advantage of them. We need an attorney general who has the experience and the ability to step up and protect the rights of all Missourians, all those God-given rights that they have that sometimes get neglected by state government. And that's why I'm so proud to come on your show and announce that I will be running for attorney general in 2016 to make sure that I can continue my 20 years of protecting the rights of Missourians.
Well, that is good news indeed, because heaven knows that we have not had any sort of representation or anyone watching out for the people in the AG office, especially, you know, with the issues that you mentioned and the selling of Missourians' private information to third parties and just the refusal of the current AG to actually weigh in on anything. I mean, I understand that he has ambitions for other political offices, but he has a job that he's got to do right now. So that's for us, that's great news, because you've done a really good job and have stepped in a way to fill the void that has been left by the current AG.
Well, I think when you look at the things, for example, when we issued those subpoenas this last session to those federal agents to appear before the Senate, those subpoenas that I issued, that's the first time a state senator had issued a subpoena really in over 20 years. I think Jay Nixon actually in the Senate was the last one to do it. And those tools are there. You just have to make sure that somebody who knows how to use those tools has them in hand to do the things that are necessary to protect Missourians. And I think really, you know, we're kind of at a precipice here in this era of big data, because you look at some of the things in our rights that we take for granted, and some things in law, for example, your Miranda rights, things like that people say, well, you know, that's just something that has to be done. Well, it wasn't always that way until it worked its way through the courts, and ultimately determinations were made about what was necessary to protect your rights. And in this era of big data that we're just now beginning in, you know, those battles are going to be fought by the states. And litigation brought by those states to protect their citizens against the federal government, that's going to draw the lines on what the Fourth Amendment means, what the Fifth Amendment means, what the Sixth Amendment means, what the Second Amendment means. And I think that in our particular time in history right now, we are at a crossroads where those actions need to be brought to define the rights of individual citizens. And I'm ready to step up and take that fight.
And, you know, you mentioned all of these issues as well, which really puts a huge focus on the Attorney General's office, because it seems that more and more, a lot of these battles that have stalled out in Washington, D.C., these are going back to the states, really as it should be. I think, you know, we would both agree on that.
Sure.
And you have states' rights really playing a huge importance, federalism really playing a huge importance, individuals in every state, whether it is right to work or voting rights or Second Amendment, or a number of different issues. These are being decided state by state, not at the federal level. And I think that there's a resurgence of this. It seems that there's a greater focus of the states. What do you make of this, and how is that going to impact your campaign?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think anyone should ever rely on the federal government to make those determinations for them. State government is much more direct. It's much more accountable. You know, I give people the example as a state senator for the 19th Senate District right now. You know, when I go to the grocery store, I see my kids' teachers. You know, I see our doctors. And they talk to me about things that are on their mind in politics. And, you know, at the federal level, there's just a disconnect. And I don't think that anyone should reasonably believe that the federal government is going to protect these rights. It is incumbent on those local legislators, those people you see every day, to listen to you and step up and protect your rights. And, the issue that you get into, it's one thing as a state of Missouri to tell citizens, hey, we recognize you have a Second Amendment right. Why don't you pony up $200,000 or $300,000 and go litigate that with the federal government, and we'll see how you do, as opposed to saying, yes, I am in office to protect that right for you, and I'm going to step up, and I'm going to use the resources of the state to make sure your rights are protected.
Exactly. Well, and that's something, again, we see that happening more and more. This very much is exciting news. I know in Missouri with a number of issues we had, you mentioned the Department of Revenue. There's also the story, which has, state by state impact as well. Missouri hasn't been as effective, but, for instance, the IRS targeting different, conservative grassroots groups.
Right.
This is something that, even though we have not had any groups in Missouri report on this yet that we know of, this is something, again, more state AGs should be stepping up to this.
Sure they should. And, the thing is, you make a good point. We don't know. And a lot of times, you've got FOIA and other things that allow citizens to get access to certain information. But when you've got the weight of the state and the ability of the state to push back against the federal government, get that information, and make them do what's right, that's what has to be done. And, I've been a former prosecutor. I prosecuted death penalty cases as a special prosecutor in the Attorney General's office. I was a special assistant U.S. attorney. I've done those criminal cases. I loved being a prosecutor. And I've represented individuals protecting their constitutional rights in the private sector, protecting business. And I am very excited about stepping up to the plate and making sure that I can use all that skill that I've gained in the last 20 years to protect all Missourians.
Yeah, well, this is exciting news indeed, because I know that a lot of Missourians, we've really missed having, we've noticed the absolute lack of representation in the Attorney General's office. And so this is, we definitely need someone to look out on behalf of the voters. Now, there's a number of issues that current AG Chris Coster has been MIA on. If elected, what would be one of the first things to which you turn your attention?
Well, for example, I think some of the data gathering information that we uncovered, for example, with Social Security and some of those other federal agencies, where they're really taking disconnected things. And I got a call from a constituent the other day who went into a health agency to get a checkup, and they were asked if they own a gun. And the question, and when they were set back by that, it was like, well, that's kind of standard practice now for reimbursement and other things. We have to ask these things. Well, where does that come from, and where is the pushback to say, you know what, just because there may be some level of reimbursement for your health care, just because you may have to go to the government for a driver's license, does not give them the absolute ability to intrude into your life, get personal information that, frankly, they're going to use for their own political gain or other things. Really, it's your detriment. And I think that we have to step up on a lot of those issues. On the criminal issues, that's part of the job, which I look forward to. But I think it's this cutting edge of, when you look at what's going on at the federal level on big data, data gathering, and defining that line for citizens of where their privacy is. I think that's the real test ground coming up in these states in these AG positions for the years to come.
Well, and we're definitely going to be watching this. Where can folks go if they want to help out on the campaign, or if they want to pitch in and do whatever? Where can you direct them to right now?
Well, we've got a Facebook page. We're going to be getting that up. I came on your show and announced it first, and in the days to come, you'll see quite a bit of information on how people can contact us as we roll this out. But I wanted to get on your show first because you have really been at the forefront of these issues, and I think there's no better person to hear this than you.
Well, we appreciate it. Senator Kurt Schaefer, this is good news indeed for the office of the AG. Bad news for people who don't want to see this kind of stuff followed through on, so, it makes me all the happier. Senator,
once we grab on, we will not let go, I can tell you that.
Well, that is fabulous news. Well,
Thanks,
we appreciate you announcing it on the program, and we'll be watching. Thanks, Senator.
Great, thank you.
Take care.